know that understanding this difference is not too significant. What is crucial is the different types of charts and knowing when to use them. We started by looking at a two-dimensional pie chart. These are handy for tables with not more than 2 columns of data, and for when you need to graphically show the parts that make up a whole, such as understanding the percentage allocation linked to gender within a group. The pie chart does not come without its limitations, so assess whether you can use a different chart for larger data sets or where you have more than 7 categories that need to be displayed. This alternative could be a column or a bar chart. These charts are handy where you have more than 7 categories that require a comparison and perhaps even need to be compared over a period of time. As a result, these charts are more versatile and can handle lots of data. And while they present the same message and are functionally similar, it would be best to use a bar graph where your y-axis text labels are quite lengthy. This could be the case in the event of trying to graphically show the results of a survey, as we saw in our example in the last lesson. Now, let's get to slicing and dicing our data with slices. As I mentioned, this is another way to filter your data, and once you've set it up, it's even faster than the traditional method of filtering. We will look at how it is possible to not only add 1, but 2 slices for multi-level filtering. And the benefits of these slices is that they look really attractive and they are customizable to a certain extent. But they are also quite intuitive, making your spreadsheets easier to engage with. We can insert our slices in the Insert tab and the Filters group. And if a feature is customizable in Excel, it is bound to come with a Contextual tab as well, and slices are no exception to this rule. Let's get the synapses prepared and ready for a practical. But can you answer this question? What are the benefits of using a slicer? I mentioned these benefits in an earlier slide. So enter your answer into Morpheus, our AI bot. And I think after reading all the options available, that D is most certainly the correct answer, as slices are indeed easy to use, fun, and functional. Here we have the same data from lesson 6, and I've added some headings. Now we will insert my favorite feature, the table, using the shortcut Control-T. Now I get to show you another benefit of tables. As we've discussed, these are slices, and you can insert the slicer from the Table Design Contextual tab within the Tools group. Alternatively, you can navigate to the Insert tab, to the Filters group, and select a slicer. Tick the slices that you want to add. For now, I'm going to start with month. As with every feature in Excel, of course, you can customize the slices as well. It has its own contextual tab. Within this tab, you can change the styles, the settings, alignment, and the size of the slices. We can even change the heading. Let's go ahead and customize our slicer. I will resize it to reveal all the months. And we can change the style, and we have the option to select from light and dark styles. So if you thought filtering was fun, let's see a slicer in action. I'm going to select January, and look how quickly it filters in fewer clicks than using the old school way of filters. And you can also select any month as you wish. You may also want to look at quarter 1. So to activate the multi-select, we can then add in more than one filter to our table. Now let's add another slicer for products. We will follow the same process as we did for inserting the month, and I will realign it and resize it. Now we can activate the multi-select as well, and now we can filter to our heart's content. And you can filter within the months as well as the products at the same time. So you can see that slices are a quick and easy way to shape our data in a user-friendly manner that is visually appealing. Wouldn't you agree? Just be careful that if you convert your table to a normal range, you will end up deleting your slices as well. Now, we're not going to make graphs out of people, but we can use a really fun new tool in Excel called People Graphs. This add-in was introduced in the Excel 2013 version and is an endearing alternative to the regular charts that are available in Excel. But in order to use these, you will need to be signed in to your Microsoft account. And when you use the graph for the first time, you will have to select the option to trust the add-in. But why would we use people graphs? These can be used as infographics, and it is a way to present your data in a more interesting design to make users more engaged with the message you're trying to put across. They are also super quick and very easy to create, as you'll see in a moment. Pie charts are quite limited in their uses, and people graphs have even more limitations. They can also only accept data with a maximum of 2 columns of information, so it's not for very large volumes. People graphs normally only demonstrate one idea linked to the source data. And while they are customizable, this can only be done to a certain extent and can be quite inflexible, which can be frustrating. But you can reach your own conclusions after this practical. As I mentioned, this is an add-in since 2013 and is, interestingly enough, not very well known. Now let's proceed to create our very first people graph. When you insert the graph, an image appears with some dummy data. We can now insert our own data. By clicking anywhere in the chart, you'll have 2 buttons that appear. Select the option that looks like a table and click on the green button to select your data. We get a message from Excel to say, please select 2 columns in your Excel spreadsheet. Let's follow those instructions and highlight our data. Once we've highlighted our data, the instruction changes to indicate we've selected 3 rows with 2 columns. If this is correct, select Create. And just like that, we've created our very first people graph. Now let's look at the customizing options. As I mentioned, they are extremely limited, so let's look in the settings that looks like a cog. You can choose between 3 types of people graphs, and you can change the theme. The last option is to be able to change the shapes. And because we're selling products and representing sales, I will change the shape to money bags. The last thing is to ensure you resize your graph. By clicking on the border, you'll activate the cursor to resize. And don't forget to place it and align it in the correct position within your spreadsheet. And in 2 minutes or less, you have a really nifty infographic that you can now use in presentations or as a daily email update to impress your manager. So instead of using a chart or a graph, these people graphs definitely makes your info more interesting to look at. The limitations as well, they are very easy to create. As you can see, they are not overly customizable and definitely will not be useful for large volumes of data. You should be able to glean the information that you need straight away. The last benefit of the people graph is that it is also dynamic. So if we change the data within the source table, the change is immediately reflected in the people graph. And you can also save your graph as an image and add it into your presentations. Are you enjoying building on your knowledge? I hope that you can see that learning the basics of tables and charts has helped lay the foundation for us to add on the ability to insert slices and create trendy people graphs. And this is just the beginning. It gets that much more exhilarating in Lesson 8, where we touch on cleaning our data and practical ways for entering data into a database while minimizing the risk of error. We will be covering the topics of autofill versus flash fill, conditional formatting, and we get to create our first drop-down list. Make sure you clear your schedule, as this is a lesson not to be missed. But coming back to the artsy side of Excel, we can move into the area of illustrations. As I mentioned in the introduction video, we are very visual beings and like to use pictures as a means of communicating. Fortunately, to add an image in Excel is quite simple and fun. You can add them directly from your local machine or select the appropriate one from a collection of stock images for royalty-free options, or you can even search for images directly from the internet by using online sources. How convenient! Also within the illustrations group, you can add shapes. There are many options to choose from, including lines, arrows, your basic shapes, such as triangles, circles, and squares, and even stars, banners, and speech bubbles. Again, these are really easy to insert, and you can use multiple shapes to create a larger image if you're feeling particularly innovative. This is where Excel illustrations become really interesting. To add a creative touch to your spreadsheets, you can search for black and white 2D icons and even 3D models. Do spend some time exploring the options available, as you can even include emojis to add an expressive element to your data. You can also get really creative with the types of spreadsheets that you build in order to utilize these visuals. Excel has its very own built-in snipping tool. The screenshot feature is useful for taking manual screenshots, but of course there's an extra option to select windows that are open in the background. Once inserted in the spreadsheet, all the normal formatting options available for pictures becomes available for your screenshots as well. And drum roll please for the final element. Introducing the Smart Art graphics. These are pre-designed formats made up of various shapes and can be used to communicate a thought, idea, or set of information in a visual way. So they are particularly useful for representing processes, lists, hierarchies, relationships, and much, much more. As we discussed for pictures, you can add them from your local machine, from a selection of stock images, or online sources. This is extremely useful, as you can search for these images directly from Excel without needing to go into your internet browser. Moving on to shapes, the one I use most often is the grouping tool. To insert a shape, hold the left click and drag the shape into the position that you need. Once inserted, you can then format the size, the thickness, the color, the position, and the elements of the shape. As you will notice, once the shape is inserted, the Shape Format Contextual tab becomes available. Here you'll have additional options for customizing your shape. Another popular shape is the line and the line arrow, but these are incredibly frustrating to work with. When you insert one of these, it is very difficult to align them. So I'm going to teach you a trick of how to insert a line or a line arrow to ensure that they are straight. So under the Illustrations group in the Insert tab, select your shape, but before using the left click, make sure you hold Shift. Now holding the Shift key, hold your left click in and drag. So no matter where you move your mouse, your line shape will stay straight. For icons, you can search for any black and white 2D icon to make your spreadsheet easier to read. You could perhaps use these where you have a section of formulas and perhaps insert a calculator to indicate that this section relates to formulas or functions. Once inserted, you can resize your icon and even change the color. Icons also have their own contextual tab called the Graphics Format Contextual tab, and here you can make further adjustments and customization. Now, to add something extra to your spreadsheets, you can add 3D models. You can also load them from your local machine or search for them from online sources. You will see there are many categories to choose from if you need some inspiration. Where 3D models may be useful is if you're perhaps selling watches and you want to send a price list to your customer. You can search for a watch and insert it into your spreadsheet. And once inserted, you can resize as needed. And when your customers receive your spreadsheet, they will be able to interact with the 3D model as they please. 3D models again come with their own contextual tab where you can find additional options for customization. Now for adding a screenshot, you can take a screenshot of windows that are open on your desktop or a manual screen clipping. So let's have a look at the options here. To take a screen clipping, select Screen Clipping command. And very similar to the snipping tool, you can add a screenshot to your Excel spreadsheet. The next option is that you can choose from the available windows that are open. Using this performs a similar function to the print screen option on your keyboard. And as you have inserted these screenshots, the Picture Format Contextual tab becomes available where you can make the same customizations and formats as you would to a normal picture. Now let's move on to the pre-designed patterns and formats known as the Smart Art graphics. These are very easy to edit and manage, and every element of a Smart Art graphic is completely customizable. When choosing a Smart Art graphic, consider what message it is that you are trying to present and how you want to display your data. The Microsoft Office Support website has a list of all the Smart Art graphics available and some instructions to help guide you when you want to select the appropriate graphic. For example, if you need to show a continual process, the most suitable graphic would be a cycle. So using these guidelines, let's do our first example by creating a hierarchy for our startup company. So in order to create an organizational chart, in the Choose a Smart Art Graphic dialog box, we will select Hierarchy. Within each graphic, there are various options for the layouts. I will select the Organization Chart layout, And in the bottom right corner of the dialog box, you will see a description of each layout to further help you in making the right decision. Select OK to insert your graphic. By clicking on the arrow, we can begin to enter data. But you can also enter this data directly in the graphic. And within a few minutes, we have created our first organizational chart. To hide the text pane, you can just click the arrow again and resize your chart as required. Now the customization fun can begin, as again the Smart Art Design and Format contextual tabs become available to help you in choosing your colors, shapes, styles, and layouts. Smart Art graphics are also extremely flexible in that you can add additional layers with the simple click of a button. Press Enter to add an additional position. You can also change the order of your layout by selecting right to left in the Create Graphic group. In order to create a new organizational chart within the same company, you can promote a position and then create a separate organizational chart. If you need the sales rep to report to the new supervisor, you can demote this bubble. Now let's do another example. In this scenario, where I want to plan an event, I would want to use a list. Planning an event can be quite stressful, so I would personally prefer to enjoy looking at my list. Now let's have a look at the editing options. There are 3 quick access buttons that become available when you right-click in your Smart Art graphic. Here you can change the style, and I'm going to select 3D for fun. Let's change the color palette. And lastly, let's change the layout. There is another option for formatting your graphics. You can right-click anywhere within your graphic and select Format Shape. This brings up the Format Shape task pane. Do you remember the task panes from Lesson 6? Here you have many more options for your intricate editing and formatting. So,